Sir, I have a package for you. Could you please sign this?
Yeah, I can sign it.
Why do you have turtle toys behind you?
Oh, I just like them. I have since I was a kid.
Don't you know that having toys is childish?
Yeah, I can see that. But why do you think that?
The Bible, dude. Don't you know it says when I became a man, I put away childish things?
Oh, yeah, I love that verse. Now, what if I told you that verse doesn't mean what you think it means, but maybe it actually means way more?
I mean, I don't see how it could mean anything different.
Well, let's think about it. Welcome to Postulatable, where thinking is strongly encouraged. I'm Jedediah. So the verse in question today is 1 Corinthians 13:11, and it says, "When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things." And no, we can't just take that verse and call it good. When we read scripture, we have to take into account what the verses around it are saying, for one, and two, who the message is written to, and lastly, what was going on at that time and in that place. These concepts are imperative in understanding the proper context of the passage. If we don't take time to understand the who, what, when, and where of a text, we could simply take any verse and make it say what we want it to say, which is something we see way too many people doing nowadays. So with this verse in particular, we need to take a step back to see what the verses before and after are saying. We could also take another step back to see what the chapter is saying, and another step to see what the surrounding chapters are saying. And then we could even take another step back if we wanted to get to know what the entire book is about. Let's start there with the entire book. The book of 1 Corinthians is about Paul addressing concerns that the people at Corinth have sought counsel from Paul about. We won't get into every issue in this video, but we are going to zoom into the 12th through the 14th chapter, where Paul is addressing spiritual gifts with a focus on tongues and prophecy. Let's zoom in again, and we get into the 13th chapter where Paul is teaching what he considers a more excellent way, which is love, or in the King James, charity. The Greek word used in this chapter for charity is agape. This is considered the highest word for love in the Greek. It is a love that is unconditional, completely selfless, and sacrificial. It is the love that Jesus showed all of us on the cross when he died for us. Now that we understand love as the focus for this chapter, we will zoom in a bit more to the 8th verse, where Paul begins to address prophecy failing and tongues ceasing. But remember, the context of this chapter is love/charity. Now that we have that in the back of our minds, let's read the entire passage first, and I want you to think through what is being said and all the information we just talked about. Keep that in the back of your mind. Then we will go deeper into the text and break it down. "Charity never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now I see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity." Did anything stand out to you? Did you notice a theme here? Did you think it was all connected, or did you think it was broken up into different sections? I strongly recommend when you read scripture to ask yourself questions like these to better understand what is being said and why. Let's start back at the 8th verse. "Charity never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away." We can see in the 8th verse that Paul is talking about prophecy and tongues here, like he was in the 12th and in the 14th chapters. But he also includes knowledge, which I will talk later about what I believe that to mean. Paul, in this verse, isn't exactly talking positively of these gifts, however. In fact, he's saying they will all go away. But why? Well, let's keep investigating. The next verse is talking about knowledge and prophecy again, but he's talking about it as if it's incomplete. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. He is alluding to a limitation in our understanding. But the linchpin of this entire passage hinges on the interpretation of the next verse. What is the perfect that is referred to in the 10th verse? But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. Some say it's referring to the Bible, the closed canon of Scripture we have today. Some say it's referring to the matured church who has the completed Bible. These views are usually held by cessationists, which is a fancy theological term for people who think the gifts of the Spirit have ceased. Get it? Ceased cessationists? Now, I am a continuationist, which simply means I believe the gifts of the Spirit are continuing and still active today. Continuationists? Continued. Now, the 12th to the 14th chapters are clearly talking about the gifts of the Spirit. That is fact. But we have to remember that this chapter is on love, and it is sandwiched in the middle of these two chapters, and it is emphasizing a more excellent way, which we'll get to later. Now, back to verse 10. This verse seems most clear to me when we interpret the perfect as the coming of Jesus Christ, who is perfect. Now, if we take that interpretation of the 10th verse, we see so many doors open up in this passage. The perfect is Christ, who is causing the partial to be done away with, and we will see how he is doing that in the next few verses. But now, when we read the 8th and 9th verse, it makes so much more sense why the gifts of tongues, prophecy, and knowledge will go away, because they are in that category of partial, which Jesus will do away with. Now we get to the 11th verse, which I feel is taken out of context way too often. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. This verse is an analogy of what it will look like when the perfect comes. Here in the now, we are children and have partial understanding just as our little children do. Children do not understand the intricacies of how a car operates, for example. They just know that it drives. In the same way, we have a partial or limited understanding of this life in relation to the life that we were created for, the life that is to come. We know Jesus is in the metaphorical driver's seat, as it were, but we can't understand what we are not capable of understanding. Only when we mature and are with Christ will we put away childish things, because he will reveal to us that which we do not understand in its fullness. That is why in the next verse, Paul is explaining further what he is talking about. For now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Prophecy, tongues, and knowledge are gifts that point to the truth that is to come. Notice the verbiage used in all these verses: the part and the full, the child and the man, the now and the then. This whole passage is referring to two separate times, the here and now and the time when Christ returns. Back in that time, they didn't have mirrors like we have now. They used polished metals as their mirror. Only these mirrors weren't good. They were often imperfect and hard to make out what was being reflected. That is the here and the now. We can see a bit, but when Christ returns, we will see face to face. That is to say, even better than a mirror. Now I know in part, but then shall I know, even as also I am known. This verse directly ties back to the partial knowledge of verse 9 and when the perfect comes in verse 10. We know even as we are known when the partial is done away with. And here is the culmination of the more excellent way. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. Do you see it yet? Now is referring to the here and now in this life. Now abides faith, hope, and charity. I told you earlier I would tell you what I thought knowledge was. Well, the greatest is love, because when the Lord comes, our faith and hope will be no more. I believe they are the partial knowledge in the 8th, 9th, and 12th verse. They will go away because they have been actualized. No more will we need faith. No more will we need hope. When Christ returns, they will be done away because what they pointed to is here. You will see the object of your faith and hope face to face. Beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. 1 John 3:2. But love will live on because God is love. And as the first 3 words of the 8th verse say, love/charity never fails. It will endure for all eternity. That is the more excellent way. Though there are other verses that you can use to point to biblical maturity, I personally wouldn't use 1 Corinthians 13:11 because the context of the passage is not meant to be literal. It is an analogy. Just because the verse can be true does not make it necessarily true. That's why context is so important. But if you want to use this verse, go ahead. I won't stop you. Remember, it's not about me being right. All I care about is that you allow yourself to be challenged to think deeper, because I will follow Scripture wherever it leads me. Will you? That's all the provoking of thought I have for today. Thank you all for watching. Oh, and if you could do one thing for me, if you could take 1 second to like and subscribe, it would help my channel out tremendously. Seriously, it only takes 1 second. Thanks again. God bless.